Live Formula One.
Good afternoon and welcome along to live coverage of the Sao Paulo sprint race. It's the penultimate sprint of the season at the Autodromo José Carlos Pace in Interlagos. No rain in the air right now. There's about a 10% chance of it though. Little grey overhead and overcast, but the grandstands are filling up nicely around this just over 4.3 kilometre, 2.6 mile track, which has hosted a sprint race every year since the introduction of them. 8 points up for grabs for the winner, all the way down to 1 point for 8th place, and indeed every single point matters in the title fight, both in the drivers and the constructors. Max Verstappen leading Lando Norris by 47 points, and in the constructors, where McLaren lead Ferrari by 29 points, Red Bull now down to third, 24 laps ahead of us. No mandatory pit stops, and to guide you through every step of the action is myself, Harry Benjamin, former Renault Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Jolyon, so far this weekend, limited running with only one practice session before we dived straight into qualifying for the sprint, but McLaren looking strong. Indeed, Norris, we felt, had the edge, but in the end, it was Piastri who took pole position.
It was on the final run by just under 300ths of a second around a very short lap, but I don't think Norris will mind all that much. The start in this circuit, Interlagos in Sao Paulo, it's a very short run to the first corner. Norris will have the inside, and I am sure that McLaren will have in their head some more distinct rules of engagement between their two drivers. For them, it's all about getting Norris ahead of Verstappen with as many cars between them as possible, and Verstappen starts fourth. Leclerc in third. That's a buffer that is good for McLaren, but we know Max is great off the line as well.
So do you think, though, that Piastri, if both McLarens get away well at the start, he will move out of the way for Norris, or will that be something they debate and decide as the race unfolds?
I'm fully expecting him to get out of the way for Norris at some point, and I don't know which point. I don't think they'll do it too early. I think that could jeopardise the race. You certainly don't want to be thinking about it on race start. Piastri's got to be thinking about getting his own start, keeping the lead if he can. Don't fight your teammate ridiculously hard. Don't do a Monza. But, he's still in it for him. And if Leclerc passes Norris at the start, then Piastri's got to be thinking, firstly, I need to be in a position to win this. Secondly, if there's team orders in play, then at some point I'd expect him to jump out of the way.
Andrew, Max Verstappen starts down in fourth, as Jolyon mentions. Based on what we've seen so far from the Red Bull pace, do you think he can charge forward to a podium to challenge for the win?
I'm actually expecting him not to be able to. The McLaren pace yesterday was incredibly strong. Leclerc, who's in the Ferrari that's had the sort of strongest race pace over the last couple of Grand Prix, was almost wowed by it. He doesn't think he can challenge the McLarens in the Ferrari, and Verstappen was pretty negative, because the Red Bull's weakness in the last few races has been race pace, which has been a complete turnaround from the previous two seasons. So you never know with Verstappen and Red Bull, but he was talking about the car. The track's been resurfaced. It's very bumpy, even though it's been resurfaced, and the Red Bull doesn't like bumps, and Verstappen was talking about that. So I think he thinks he'll struggle, but let's wait and see.
Yeah, the entire track has been resurfaced fairly recently as well, so let's see how they contend with that. So far it has seemed like the bumps have certainly been affecting some of the cars, particularly the two Mercedes cars have seemed to be struggling throughout their performances so far. Hamilton outside of the top 10, he's starting from 11th. Russell a little better off in 6th. He's behind Jolyon. Sainz, the Ferrari, is 5th, and Leclerc in 3rd. Now they are mounting a serious challenge now to McLaren for the Constructors' Championship. They're just 29 points behind, and Ferrari really have a lot of momentum behind them right now.
They do. They've been benefiting massively from the Verstappen-Norris squabbles of the last 2 weekends, and they come through for Grand Prix weekends. Wins for Leclerc in Austin, for Sainz in Mexico. Big double points as well, a 1-2 and a 1-3, and they'll be hoping this weekend is more of the same. But as Andrew said, the McLaren pace yesterday was a little bit of a fright for everyone. 1-2 on the grid. Ferrari's race pace has been better. They'll be hoping to do something about it, but first of all they've got to deal with Verstappen in 4th.
Certainly has, and Verstappen is sitting in his car, all the drivers are, and Verstappen's just put his visor down in his cockpit, getting ready ahead of the formation lap. It's a really unique start-finish straight here, isn't it, Jolien? Talk us through why that is.
It's a massive run coming out of turn 12, the final corner at Jinsao. It's a big uphill curved run through another technically 3 corners, flat out for over a kilometre up the hill, and then a big braking zone for the centre S, turn 1, where you can overtake inside, you can overtake outside, and in a 24-lap sprint where all of the drivers start on a new set of medium tyres, that is going to be a defining factor. Can they get the run? Can they have the straight line speed and execute moves into turn 1 or turn 4 to Tiro del Lago?
As they make their way towards turn 1 and 2, those set of S's where they plunge downhill for the formation lap, we'll have 17 cars line up on the grid. We've got 3 pit lane starters after changes under Parc Fermé for Fernando Alonso's Aston Martin and his teammate Lance Stroll, along with Zhou Guanyu. So Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda will be the final 2 cars on the grid. Just in terms of how the championship is lying, it is indeed Max Verstappen 47 points clear of Lando Norris. Charles Leclerc is 24 points back from Norris in 3rd. Piastri 4th. Carlos Sainz rounds out the top 5. Then over in the Constructors' Championship, it is McLaren with a 29-point buffer. Ferrari chasing in 2nd. Red Bull now 25 points down on Ferrari in 3rd. Mercedes, Aston Martin the top 5, with Haas leading the charge in the mid-pack, holding on to that coveted 6th place position ahead of RB. Williams, Alpine are 8th and 9th, and they're embroiled in a battle. Sauber adrift right at the bottom in 10th, no points to their name.
6 cars really in this race at the front. Then there's a buffer of Gasly and Lawson on row 4 in the Alpine and the RB, hoping to get some minor points in their battles in the Constructors' Championship. But from Russell, Sainz, Verstappen, Leclerc, Norris and Piastri, that is your relevant fight in terms of championship positions for the Constructors and the Drivers' Championship. A reminder, Hamilton's only 11th on the grid. Perez is 13th. Neither of them made it into the final part of qualifying yesterday. They both got work to do to get anything out of this.
Lining up onto the start-finish straight now, slowing right down is Oscar Piastri, who starts on pole for the sprint alongside his teammate Lando Norris. Then it's the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc ahead of Verstappen and Sainz, the top 5. George Russell is 6th, and then it's Pierre Gasly in the Alpine 7th ahead of Liam Lawson in the RB 8th. Alex Albon starts 9th, with Ollie Behrman substituting for Kevin Magnussen now for the full weekend after Magnussen has been unwell this weekend. He starts 10th ahead of Hamilton. Hulkenberg is 12th, Perez 13th, Colapinto and Bottas round out the top 15. Then it is Esteban Ocon and Yuki Tsunoda 16th and 17th. Pit lane starters for Alonso, Stroll and Zhou Guanyu. 24 laps ahead of us, 100-kilometre dash in this race. Just 8 points up for grabs for the win of this. Indeed, 34 points available across this weekend, 120 points still available till the end of the year. And it's a bit of a wait at the front as well for Piastri and Norris, who are standing there lining up ready to go.
Long wait at the front. The midfielder's now getting into place. It's a short run to the first corner, but it's a technical and slightly uphill start for those at the front of the grid.
The final cars lining up now then. It will be the Alpine of Esteban Ocon in 16th. Yuki Tsunoda takes his place right at the back. 3 pit lane starters. Zhou Guanyu lining up behind the 2 Aston Martins. Piastri on pole. Lando Norris alongside. Verstappen starts down in 4th. It's eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing in the Sao Paulo sprint. It's a good start from Piastri, who cuts across his teammate to the inside. That forces Norris to the outside. Lock up from Verstappen down through the centre S's. Verstappen forced to tuck back in behind the Ferrari, but it's a clean start from our front 2. Piastri leads Norris.
It's as you were for all of the top 6. Verstappen had a look down the inside and he's all over the back of Leclerc into turn 4, but still nothing doing for them. So still Verstappen between the 2 Ferraris. Piastri a fantastic getaway from him, covered off Norris immediately, and the McLaren still have 1-2.
Albon was having a nice dice with Pierre Gasly early doors indeed. Now the Haas and the Williams almost coming toe-to-toe round the right-hander as we get into the middle sector. Tight and twisty, lots of U-shaped bends, but they're all keeping it nice and clean. It's Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen, Sainz, the top 5. Russell, Gasly, Albon, Lawson and Hulkenberg is the Haas that's made gains up into 10th.
Lovely move for Behrman around the outside of Albon at Vico de Pato, turn 9, as the front runners now exit Jinsao, and Verstappen's not miles away from the back of Charles Leclerc. Over the crest, coming through those flat-out lefts, he might have a run here, Harry.
Here he comes then, a little bit of bump over the curving onto the start-finish straight. Won't get DRS this time around. He'll activate on this lap. Down towards the centre S's. A little bit of a messy into the corner for Verstappen. He's still managing to carry the momentum. Arcs round the left-hander, out through 3, down the Retta Aposta straight. Getting the toe with the aid of DRS. Closes up to the back of the Ferrari, but he's not close enough to mount a challenge.
Yeah, without DRS there, no chance for him to make a move, as Sergio Perez does come past Franco Colapinto further down. Lewis Hamilton is with them as well. So Perez in 12th, Colapinto 13th. Hamilton down to 14th on the opening lap from an 11th place grid spot, so not a good start for him. But yeah, Verstappen, the man, applying the pressure. Norris is right with his teammate as well, and they're already coming down towards Yun Sao at the end of the second lap. The laps are frantic here, just 1 minute 11 seconds, and we may have a fight for the lead.
Yeah, blink and you'll miss a lap so easily. Piastri just half a second clear then of his teammate Lando Norris, who is second. Leclerc, Verstappen signs the top 5. Russell, Gasly, Lawson, the 2 Haas cars. Hulkenberg ahead of Behrman, rounding out the top 10. Then comes Albon. Perez is 12th, Colapinto 13th, Hamilton 14th. This the sound though of Max Verstappen making a move on the Ferrari of Charles Leclerc. Tries it round the outside. Leclerc defends, going down through the centre S's. Leclerc holds on, but that's going to give Verstappen a nice run out through the centre S's. Arcs round the left-hander of 3. Hits the DRS button. The rear wing flap should fly open. Closes right up to the back of Leclerc. Shoves his nose down the inside, but Leclerc doesn't blink, and he holds on to the position. Leclerc 3rd, Verstappen 4th.
And Verstappen frustrated at the moment. He's right with Charles Leclerc, but not quite close enough to send a lunge down the inside of turn 4, and he couldn't quite get around the outside of turn 1. It's tidy defence from Charles Leclerc. Verstappen is tantalisingly close to being able to pull that one off, and if he does, the next car ahead will still be Lando Norris, who is stuck behind Oscar Piastri. No sign of team orders at the moment out front. Norris looks quicker. He's in the wheel tracks of his teammate, but so far no way through. This is Verstappen.
Take your time, Max, and you know the game.
Take your time, Max. You know the game. That's the message from Gianpiero Lambiase, Max Verstappen's race engineer. That's the sound of Max Verstappen going down the main straight, trying to catch back up to the rear end of Charles Leclerc. Lando Norris comes across the line, fastest lap. That's taken away immediately by Charles Leclerc. The top 4 still split by 2.5 seconds. This battle is truly on. Actually, Norris has just dropped back from his teammate slightly. 7/10 between Piastri, who leads this sprint on lap 4.
Yeah, Norris was very close coming out of Yun Sao, but didn't get the cleanest of exits, and Piastri managed to effortlessly hang on for another lap. But whilst Norris is within DRS range, it's very difficult for his teammate to pull away.
Now we're just getting another look at the start there, and it was a nice clean start from Oscar Piastri. Immediately though, coming over to defend from Norris.
It was a rare poor start from Verstappen, but he still had a nice chance to get up the inside of Charles Leclerc at the first corner. Had a big lock-up on the left front as he went for the inside, and the Ferrari man turned in. They were not that close to contact, and Verstappen still applied the pressure down to 4. But with he's been the man for great starts this year, hasn't he, so far? The amount of times he's gained places, it wasn't to be this time for Max, and it was a meaty lock-up.
I tell you what's interesting as well, Harry and Jolie, and the McLarens looked like they were checking out initially, but Leclerc's now pegged him, and he's now within a second of Norris, who's a half a second just behind his teammate.
Indeed, Norris is caught right back up to his teammate Piastri, plunging down through the centre S's. With the aid of DRS, Norris is able to close back up, but still just behind for the time being as they head down the Retta Aposta straight towards turn 4. Can Norris get a good run here? He's tucked right up behind Piastri. No, and just behind them, that Ferrari of Charles Leclerc is lurking, and Verstappen not too far away either in 4th.
Verstappen's dropping away from the top 3. Leclerc, as Andrew said, is now on the tail of the top 2. That's the replay that you can hear of George Russell cutting through the first chicane. Verstappen's fallen away out of DRS range of Leclerc ahead now. So Sainz is still 2 seconds back from him in 5th position. With the race pace that we've seen from Ferrari recently, I would be surprised if he's not gaining.
Yeah, that's close.
Okay, understood.
So that's Norris saying, yeah, I'm close. The reply, okay, understood, from Will Joseph on the pit wall. Now, I'm presuming, Jolien, that that's a message to go, I'm close enough. Piastri needs to let me through, because Charles Leclerc is right onto the back now. The two McLarens closing in. Leclerc has the fastest lap and is gaining all the time.
And there's going to be some team orders incoming then. That's Norris saying, I'm close. He's not yet close enough to make a move, and Piastri's hanging on out front. Verstappen has actually just made it back inside 1 second of Charles Leclerc, who's just over 1 second away from Lando Norris. So the gap's ebbing and flowing, but it's concerted pressure from Norris on the race lead. He's still within half a second of Piastri into turn 4, but Oscar's driving cleanly, making no mistakes, and is able to cope with that pressure for now.
And the top 4 are moving away from everybody else. Carlos Sainz just doesn't have his teammates' pace this weekend so far. At least he's now nearly 3 seconds behind the Verstappen Red Bull.
And Lando, we understand, just keep an eye on Leclerc behind.
So the team saying they know what Lando is trying to say, and it sounds like they've got things in hand at the moment, but Piastri also has things in hand, and the gap is 8 tenths. Looks like he's still stable out front. Sainz is over a second a lap slower than those ahead. He's 6 seconds down after 6 laps from the race lead. He's 3 seconds away from Verstappen. He must be trying to save some medium tyres, I would say, at this stage. Verstappen comes through and does the fastest lap of the race, 3 to 4 tenths quicker than Charles Leclerc, and he's right with Leclerc again.
Could we get a 4-way battle for the lead here, for the win of this sprint? Piastri leads lap 7 of 24, 8 tenths clear of teammate Norris. Then comes Charles Leclerc about a second back, and now Verstappen, who had fallen out of DRS range of the Ferrari, is now well and truly back in it. Has a little look down the inside towards turn 4. Verstappen still needs to make up a bit more ground though.
Yeah, but I'm not sure what I'm doing here, mate. I thought we spoke about this one.
Right, so Norris really wants this team order to happen now. He's bunched in behind his teammate. Once you're in the dirty air, it's difficult to do too much more. We're seeing that with Verstappen applying pressure on Leclerc. Norris is applying pressure on Piastri, but none of them are able to shape up for a move just yet. Norris with a big slide as he comes into Pico de Pato on the end of this lap. Now they're into Magulio, the quick left-hander over the crest, and he's dropped away from Piastri. There's over a second now between Norris and Piastri, and Charles Leclerc is quite close to the second place McLaren.
Out of Jinsao, heading up the hill, up through the gears. This is the sound of Max Verstappen, currently 4th with the fastest lap, chasing down Charles Leclerc, who's chasing down Lando Norris, who is now slightly detached from his teammate Piastri. Leclerc under braking, closes in through the centre S's, but the front end doesn't quite bite for Leclerc as he turns it into the left. That exposes him in the run down the Retto Aposta towards turn 4. Leclerc will get DRS from Norris ahead, but so too will Verstappen. Under the brakes, the DRS slams shut, slings it into the left-hander. Verstappen closes, but he still can't find a way through. It's Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen, the top 4.
I wonder, here's Norris's radio.
And Lando, understood. Keep doing what you're doing.
I understand.
Yeah, whatever.
I can see why Norris is frustrated. He's going to be getting his tyres overheating. He wants clear air in front of his car. He does not need to be overheating his tyres behind Piastri. At this rate, they're going to mess this up, McLaren are, with the team orders.
If they plan to have team orders, I don't know why they're not imposing them when they had a small buffer to Leclerc. Now Norris is under pressure. He's more than a second away from his teammate once again. As they exit the final corner and start going up the hill, Leclerc's 6 tenths away from Norris. He's got Verstappen for company as well, and Lando Norris is going to come under pressure here for second place. DRS open for the Ferrari.
Lap 9 of 24, into the centre S's we go. Norris ahead of the Ferrari, ahead of the Verstappen, all 3 running through the same corner. This battle for second now, because Piastri has gotten over a second up the road and leads this race. As we continue to try and keep an eye on that battle, the other Red Bull of Sergio Perez is lamenting down in 11th and trying to get past the 2 Haas in 9th and 10th. A reminder, points only go to the top 8 in this race, and right now if they ended like this, Norris would claw back 2 points on Verstappen's lead. Perez charges down the inside of Hülkenberg into the left-hander at turn 4 and gets the move done. Perez finally gets himself up into the top 10, having started down in 13th.
Hamilton's still in 14th and behind Franco Colapinto. Good move from Sergio Perez down the inside at turn 4, nice and clean, following Ollie Behrman past Nico Hülkenberg. So Behrman has passed his more experienced teammate. It's another superb showing from him as the top 4 flash into the final corner, on the brakes, turning it through the 90 left and squeezing on the throttle. This time, Norris is back just within a second.
Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen, that's the top 4. Sainz, Russell, Gasly, Lawson, that's the top 8.
Give Lando DRS.
Piastri is told, give Lando DRS to try and keep him ahead of the Ferrari and Red Bull behind. But this seems like an unnecessary thing to do for the two McLarens. He does get DRS as Lando Norris into the Retro Imposter straight, into the left-hander of turn 4. Norris a little bit closer this time to Piastri, but he cannot shake off Charles Leclerc, who cannot shake off Max Verstappen.
Yeah, they aren't half complicating things at the moment, McLaren. Piastri has backed into Norris. It was a slower lap from Oscar Piastri, half a second away from his best. So that is probably why Norris is now 0.8 adrift of his teammate at the front of the race. But it is inviting the pressure from Leclerc, from Verstappen, to very good races in third and fourth, and we know they're strong on the brakes as well. You think to some of Leclerc's lunges in the last 12 months as well. He's got good ability at diving down the inside, so Norris has to keep him at arm's length. The DRS will help with that.
This is the sound of Oliver Behrman's Haas a little earlier, going down the inside into turn 1 on his teammate Hulkenberg, who made that quite easy, I think, for Ollie Behrman.
I feel like that might have been a team order there. Hulkenberg ceding the position, Behrman tentatively on the inside, but Hulkenberg not making that hard at all. That was for 9th.
The McLarens had a 1.6 second lead after 3 laps over Leclerc. That's when they should have swapped positions. Give Norris the free clear air, give him to give Piastri the DRS and try and keep clear of the other two like that. Right now, Leclerc is right up behind Norris, who's struggling to stay with Piastri.
He is. He's fallen back to 9/10 now, almost a second between Piastri and Norris as they make their way through turn 6 and 7, getting into that middle sector. Leclerc right on the back of Norris, but still having to look in his mirrors because Max Verstappen is there. Fine margin separating these three, all battling over the final podium positions.
This is a problem for Norris. We're at turn 9, the tight right-hander. He is 1.1 seconds behind Piastri, and Leclerc is closer than ever. This could be a great opportunity for Charles Leclerc. Coming out of turn 12, Jinsao. Now they go up the hill, and I think Norris is not going to get DRS. There's the sound of second, third, and fourth. They're super close, and Norris could be exposed here.
I think Norris might have just fallen outside of the DRS detection zone. He has. He will not get it down towards turn 1. Leclerc and Verstappen do, but all it does is help them close up under braking. Another DRS chance beckons now as they arc their way through the left-hander of 3 onto the straight that leads you down to turn 4. All 4 runners in the top 4 of this field blasting through the same corner. Piastri now back within a second ahead of Lando Norris. Leclerc 3rd, Verstappen 4th. Just behind them, nearly 4 seconds adrift is Carlos Sainz. Russell 6th, Gasly, Lawson round out the point scorers. Then comes Perez and Behrman the top 10. Hulkenberg, Albon, Colapinto is 13th. Hamilton is down in 14th ahead of Ocon. Then it's Tsunoda, Bottas, Stroll, Alonso and Zhou, the final 3 runners in this race, who all started from the pit lane.
Only a half distance in this sprint. There hasn't been that much overtaking, but it is still on a knife edge with the top 4 having no more than a second between any of those cars. Norris 9/10 away from his teammate and is always on the cusp of losing that DRS. Leclerc and Verstappen much closer, and in fact as they come up the hill now, sweeping through those left-hand corners, Verstappen is just 6/10 down from Leclerc, and if Leclerc were to drop away from Norris, I feel like that's the more likely move. Verstappen up to 3rd.
Well, are they all just really stuck now in a bit of a DRS train, giving each other all of that? But it's a messy exit through the first of the centre S's for Charles Leclerc, who now has Verstappen all over the back of him. A mistake then from the Ferrari, and that's going to leave him vulnerable to the Red Bull. Leclerc forced to defend the inside, sparks flying from the underside of both the Ferrari and the Red Bull, but Leclerc holds on.
But there is the DRS now gone from Leclerc because he's dropped more than a second away from Norris, who's 4/10 down on Piastri. So this is the chance for Verstappen. You ride on board with the Dutchman in 4th place, the championship leader, going through the tight right, now into the left-hander at the middle of the circuit. A couple of corners remain, and Leclerc is dropping away from the top 2.
And he's now outside DRS range of Norris. Is this the chance for McLaren to swap the positions?
There's a slide from Leclerc as well, coming out of Big Go to Pato. So he wants to use everything, all of that rear tyre grip to get back to the top two.
Oh, come on, Charles, so many mistakes.
Just keep calm. Now's your chance, mate.
That's Max Verstappen's radio. The two are now very close to each other. The Ferrari and the Red Bull are now detached from the two McLarens. Norris within half a second of Piastri, and then, well, he's closed right back up so quickly as Charles Leclerc to the back of Lando Norris. But Leclerc, is he struggling on these tyres in that Ferrari as well, leading to those mistakes? He's not quite within DRS range yet. He's not getting the activation down towards turn 4 on Norris. Verstappen is getting it on Leclerc, but once again, it's not powerful enough. He's not close enough to try and dive down the inside or force Leclerc into a mistake. The top 4 remain Piastri, Norris, Leclerc, Verstappen.
And Norris now half a second away from Piastri. There's 10 laps to go. If McLaren want to impose team orders, this would be a golden opportunity to do that when Norris hasn't got his mirrors full of the Ferrari. Charles Leclerc in third place. Leclerc's having to watch Verstappen, who's stalking him, coming through the tight right-hander of turn 9. Leclerc's getting back towards the top 2, and I think he's going to have DRS once again this time around. It's going to be marginal for him. He might need it with Verstappen in 4th.
Uphill through Zhengzhou. It's a series of 3 corners, but really it's all taken flat out as one that leads you back on to the main straight, which isn't even really straight. It's undulating, it's curved. 10 laps to go. Piastri leads Norris, then comes Charles Leclerc now looking in his mirrors. Max Verstappen all over the back of him through the centre S's. That was where Leclerc nearly lost the car last lap around. Not such the case this time, but Verstappen is still going to get the DRS once again down the Retta Aposta. Closes up under braking, but the top 4 still equally aligned in this race, and the two McLarens right now not showing any chances of making a swap.
They're not looking that quick though, are they, the two McLarens? Piastri with Norris now 6/10 away from him, and their lack of pace really is allowing Leclerc to get back to within a second away and apply the pressure on the two papaya cars out front. So they're looking fairly even in terms of pace. Interestingly, Carlos Sainz, I wondered if he was saving his tyres earlier on, but he's making no inroads now with less than 10 laps to go. It's still a 4-second gap from 4th to 5th, and I don't think Sainz has any pace to go and join the top 4.
No, a few tenths off of his own teammate last lap around. You would think while these guys are squabbling, Sainz, if he had the pace, might be able to close in on the back of them. Sainz is currently 5th, then comes Russell in 6th, Gasly in 7th, with Liam Lawson currently rounding out the point scorers in this sprint in 8th. Perez picked off Behrman a couple of laps ago, by the way, and is up into 9th. Behrman now into the top 10.
Verstappen's close to Leclerc, but too close into the centre S, the first corner, and he just understeered wide, couldn't get the car in, and now he drops to a second back from Charles Leclerc, who's 1.2 seconds back from Lando Norris. The McLaren's a line astern. There they go, accelerating out of 5.
With the gap to Leclerc at the moment, we're happy, if we can, to hold these positions until the last lap.
Happy to hold the positions until the last lap then, if the gap to Leclerc stays. Right now, it's about 1.3 seconds between Norris and Leclerc.
I'm not understanding the logic going on here from McLaren. I've not understood it for most of the year, to be fair, but whilst they're under no pressure, if you want to swap the places, do it now, because whilst Norris is in the wheel tracks of his teammate, he is overheating those tyres. He's having to absorb a lot of pressure from Leclerc, who's not out of this race by any stretch of the imagination. He's 1.2 seconds down on Norris.
Suggest red A4, red A4.
Yeah, I will overtake.
It doesn't make a lot of sense what McLaren are doing. If they want to favour the one man of their team that can race for this championship, then give him a chance. Norris saying, look, I'm going to pass him. I'm just bunched up behind. He hasn't yet applied any pressure to Piastri, but I don't know if he's yet tried.
Came into this weekend 47 points behind his title rival Max Verstappen. It's a big gap. They need to score maximum points every chance they get. And right now, when the opportunity is there, it's not quite happening.
What they should be doing is letting Norris pass Piastri and then getting Piastri to give Leclerc the DRS, so that defends from Verstappen.
And Verstappen is half a second from Leclerc. You're absolutely right. It is illogical what they're doing at the moment, McLaren. They're not giving themselves the best chance of building the gap between Norris and Verstappen. Leclerc's doing a good job. He's neat and tidy in third, but he is drifting away from the top two.
They need to do what Carlos Sainz, exactly what you said, what Carlos Sainz did last year to take the win in Singapore, keeping the car behind within that DRS zone, because we're seeing here the top four have been in a bit of a DRS train, unable to overtake.
The gap to Leclerc is 1.3. Obviously, if Lando attacks, do not make it too difficult. At the moment, we are happy. We want to try and pull the gap to Leclerc.
That's the McLaren message to Piastri. We're happy, but the gap behind is heating up once more, arcing out through turn 3 into the Retta Aposta. Verstappen has got a good run on Charles Leclerc, who immediately darts to the inside. The Ferrari bouncing along. Verstappen finally through, arcs round the outside into 4, and Verstappen is now up to 3rd, and that is the last thing McLaren needed. While they decide about what to do with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri's position, they have seen Max Verstappen, their title rival, claw more points back and is now up into 3rd.
And now Verstappen will go hunting Norris, and if you thought there was pressure with Norris having Leclerc in his mirrors, think twice. Verstappen is going to up that pressure by tenfold. It was a nice move by Max. He's 1.3 seconds down on Norris, who's just over a second back from his teammate Piastri. There's 6 laps to go, and the Red Bull pace is good.
They surely have to swap them now to keep Norris away from Verstappen, surely. Why take the risk of allowing Verstappen to catch up if he can?
Norris is fallen back to about 0.8 of a second. That now closes up under DRS down towards turn 1. We're on lap 19 of 24 of the Sao Paulo sprint. It's Piastri who leads and has done from the start, who started on pole position. Norris in second. Verstappen now, having bided his time, finally able to make the overtake on Charles Leclerc, has gotten up to 3rd, with Leclerc now 4th ahead of his teammate Sainz. Russell, Gasly and Lawson round out the point scorers. Sergio Perez is currently 9th, closing in on the RB driver of Lawson. Here is Verstappen.
Come on, mate, let's chase him down.
1.5 seconds from Norris. Verstappen is being glued to the back of Leclerc so closely for all of these laps, but Norris has been in the wheel tracks of his teammate. All of the top, 3 of the top 4 have been in dirty air for the whole race, and it looks like it's finally showing with Charles Leclerc, who's surprisingly the man to be dropping down, with Ferrari having had great race pace in recent Grand Prix. Is not happening in the sprint so far. Leclerc's fallen away from Verstappen. Norris with a big slide out of Yunsao on the final corner. They're all managing the rear tyres now going away, and it's still Piastri leading from Norris.
Just a glance down a little further down the field. Lewis Hamilton has had a pretty rough sprint, one he'll want to forget. Started in 11th, has fallen down.
Verstappen, we believe, is faster than Leclerc.
Piastri being told Verstappen, we believe, is faster than Leclerc. Well, it's a shame then, because Verstappen is now the man in 3rd, chasing down the 2 McLarens, who still line astern, 1 and 2. Piastri ahead of Norris, then Verstappen. Leclerc now slightly detached down to 4th, with a big gap to his teammate Carlos Sainz. As we see on board, you're hearing Sergio Perez arch his way down the inside of perhaps the man who might replace him at the Red Bull team next season. Liam Lawson displaces Lawson down into 9th spot. Lawson will try and fight back down the Retta Aposta straight, but no such luck. Perez finally gets himself up into the points. It may just be the 1 point, but it's something.
Yeah, that's a move that's been on the cards for a while with Perez. They've swapped places a couple of times already, and then finally a decent move from Sergio Perez. There is smoke coming off the back of Nico Hülkenberg's Haas. If there's a safety car now, Hülkenberg is still running in 12th position, but that would neutralise the race, of course, with Piastri still at the front from Norris and then Verstappen.
Which is another reason why they should have let him by sooner, because anything like that happens, any accident, they're stuffed. Then Piastri wins the race and Norris doesn't get the extra point.
Hulkenberg then with the smoke coming out the back, and you're just hearing the sound of Lewis Hamilton pick off a nice move on Franco Colapinto, arcs his way to turn 3. The Williams got a little bit out of shape, and that allowed Hamilton through, and Hulkenberg has pulled up and is out of this race by the looks of it. Yellow flag out in sector 2. What is that going to do in the closing stage of this Sao Paulo sprint?
There's 1.1 seconds between the top 2. Hamilton dives up the inside of Oliver Behrman for 11th place, so Haas dropping back. The other one is parked up on the side of the road, and there's surely going to be a safety car, whether it's a full safety car or a VSC, to clear Nico Hülkenberg's stricken car.
Oscar Piastri still leads, lap 21 of 24, a second now clear of Norris, who's just shortened that to 9/10 of a second. Verstappen third, Leclerc fourth, Sainz fifth. Nico Hülkenberg with a bit of smoke pouring out of the rear of his Haas is still moving though. But
no, he can't get out of the car. He's stopped the car out of Pico de Pato, the right-hander at turn 9. Still the McLarens at 1-2. Norris is within DRS range of Piastri. Hülkenberg has got the wheel off the car. He wants to get out, but he's on a slope, so the car's rolling forward. When he stops, and there will be a VSC to clear that Haas car, which is almost on the track there. For now, there's not, and still the McLarens are 1-2 with less than 3 laps remaining. But it seems inevitable. Now the swap comes for McLaren, and Norris goes through.
Well, finally, on lap 22 of 24, Lando Norris is allowed through on his teammate Oscar Piastri at the end of the Retta Foster straight into the left-hander. Norris now leads, Piastri second, but Verstappen is right on the back of Piastri as they arc their way through the double right-hander. Verstappen closing in on the second McLaren.
He's right there. They're about to come up to the yellow flag zone, which is still a yellow flag and not more than that. Piastri.
Thanks, mate.
Piastri is told, thanks mate. They're passing Hülkenberg's Haas, which is parked up on the inside on the grassy verge. He is now out of the car and walking away into Yun Zhao, the left-hander. Verstappen, that's the sound you can hear of the reigning champion, the man who has the lead in the Drivers' Championship, chasing down his rival, and a virtual safety car is called at the end of lap 22 of 24 for the stricken Haas of Nico Hülkenberg. Verstappen looked like he was about to line up Norris for a move there. He will not get the chance. VSC out.
So the question is, will they clear that up or will it finish under VSC? Hülkenberg's car is still, it's almost, well, it's just off the track on the inside. I am actually very surprised the VSC wasn't called before it was. McLarens have had their blushes spared by race control waiting for that moment. That moment came at a great time for McLaren because then Verstappen was about to unleash a launch of an attack on the back of Piastri up the hill. They had a 2.5-second gap back to Verstappen, but by waiting and waiting and then changing it, Piastri now has the championship leader right on his tail. Verstappen's looking menacing, keeping the tyre temperature up. Of course, if the VSC ends, we could just get a 1 kilometre dash to the line. Even there's 1.5 laps left in this sprint.
That really will be a sprint race, won't it? VSC out then for the stricken Haas car of Nico Hülkenberg, who is now out of this race. Here's Verstappen.
Pay attention to this, because if his group is driving slow, report it.
Okay, Verstappen there wanting everybody to keep hot on how slow Piastri is going. He'll have to remain within a certain distance of the car in front, Lando Norris, and he is creating a rather large gap between his teammate and himself.
Hülkenberg's car is being pushed now behind the barriers. The marshals are there. We're gonna be going on to the final lap. We're not gonna have a full lap of racing, but with the VSC, it can end at any time. And we're gonna have 1 lap. How much of that will be at racing speed, if any?
It's a short lap around this track, just over 4.3 kilometres, 2.6 miles, 15 corners, 10 to the left and 5 to the right as we start the final lap of the Sao Paulo sprint. Lando Norris has the advantage now in the lead. Piastri is second and trying to play second fiddle now and holding Verstappen behind in third as the virtual safety car is ending as they come out of the left-hander of turn 3. They will get back to green flag racing and straight away Verstappen pushing his nose down the inside into the left-hander of turn 4. Now the track goes green. Verstappen just nudges in behind. Piastri holding on to second.
He was almost too close too soon, was Max. They had an overlap. They were really together with Verstappen on the inside at 4, but I can only imagine he had to hit the brakes to not go too quickly under the VSC, which just held on for probably 1 second long enough to keep Piastri in second place. A couple of corners to go now. Verstappen still with Piastri. Norris looks set to win this one. Can Verstappen do anything about the second place McLaren?
It'll have to be the drive of his life out of Yun Zhao, the left-hander of turn 12, but they approach now. Norris up the hill with just the main straight to go with his foot planted to the floor. We'll see the checkered flag first. Takes maximum points from the sprint. Lando Norris wins the sprint ahead of Oscar Piastri. It's a McLaren 1-2. Verstappen has to settle for third as the two Ferraris come home adrift in fourth and fifth. Leclerc ahead of Sainz with Russell, Gasly, Perez should come home and take the final point for Red Bull, and he picks up the fastest lap as well. But Lando Norris, after the call came later than we all expected in this sprint, but it eventually came, and the full points go to Norris. Vital in this championship charge. But Jolyon, questions will be asked with that strategy. It paid off in the end, but it was close.
But they left themselves so open by doing that. I mean, they had about 30 seconds to play with before it was going to get really messy for McLaren. I'm not understanding the logic of what they did, but the result is a 1-2 in the order that they wanted it to be. Piastri drove a really good race there, gave the position up when he was eventually ordered to. Norris absorbed the pressure of Leclerc earlier on.
Well done, Oscar. Great job, and massive support to the team as well. So, big fan of your work today. Really good.
Yeah, well done, everyone. Good day for the team, and I think a little bit of pace to find, but well done, everyone.
Those the tones of Oscar Piastri, who had that in his hands and did play the team game in the end.
I think Verstappen will be very happy with that, though. Max drove very well in the sprint, didn't get a good start, still kept fourth in the first corner, and then just had better pace than it seemed everyone ahead. Cleared Leclerc in a nice clean move, was piling the pressure on Piastri. Remember, he has a 5-place grid penalty for tomorrow's race, but with pace like that, he should still come through and can fight for a podium. That was the best pace we've seen Red Bull have on the long run in a long, long time.
The gap comes down by 2 points after that race. So what was a 47-point gap now becomes a 45-point gap. But the big points are handed out tomorrow for Sunday's Grand Prix. Later on this afternoon, we'll be going qualifying for that. But right now, the first of the celebrations will go towards Lando Norris, who climbs out of the cockpit of his McLaren. And despite saying in interviews yesterday that he doesn't want to think about the title challenge, he doesn't want to be asked questions on that. Well, with racing and calls like that, he is certainly still thinking of mounting for what could be his first Formula One world title. Still the gap to find, but his teammate helping him out, and crucial points for McLaren as well in their constructors fight with Ferrari.
Yeah, it's a handshake between Norris and Piastri. McLaren, the drivers in the end doing what they needed to do. Norris absorbing a lot of pressure, Piastri setting the pace and then ceding the position. McLaren really have set their stall out. As handshakes all round now as Piastri and Norris both shake hands with Verstappen. They've set their stall out, haven't they? Piastri now is willing to move out of the way to help Norris, which heaps a bit more pressure on Verstappen. But I think that'll be the happiest Max has been for a while, because, like I said, the race pace that he had there was good, and he knows he's got a 5-place grid penalty coming for tomorrow's Grand Prix. But this is a circuit you can overtake. New engine should be decent, although there's now a virtual safety car infringement noted by race control for Verstappen, and I wonder if that's him on the restart trying to pass Piastri and going too quick under the VSC. It was marginal. It was very marginal.
It was. He had his front wing right next to the rear left tyre of Oscar Piastri before the green flag had actually been flown for the end of the virtual safety car. So we'll see if that comes to anything. You can keep abreast of that if we don't get the result of that before we go off air on the BBC Sport website.
So that could potentially be a 5-second penalty if Verstappen is found guilty of that. He'll go up to the stewards after this, and that would drop him behind Leclerc and cost him another point.
Well, catch your breath after that one. The penultimate sprint is done and dusted. Only one more to go in Qatar once we come back. But the celebrations to start the Saturday in Sao Paulo go to McLaren with their 1-2 in the sprint. Norris taking crucial points away from Max Verstappen, and Verstappen then having to settle for third in that sprint. But let's hear from Verstappen talking to Naomi Schiff.
Well, Max, that's a third place for you today. Are you satisfied with that result? It seemed like you had a really great battle out there with Charles, and once he got out of that DRS train, you were able to pounce and catch the McLarens.
Yeah, it was quite a tricky race, but I think the pace was very good because we could always follow within the DRS, and yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Of course, it took a bit too long with Charles, but when everyone is in the DRS train, it's very hard to attack, so I had to wait for some mistakes, and luckily they came, and I could use that to my advantage, and yeah, it was promising. It was good. Of course, this is race pace. Tomorrow it might rain as well, so there's a lot of unknowns, but today was good.
Yesterday you weren't so happy with the pace of the car, but today it showed that there was quite a lot of pace to deliver. So is that a little bit better for going into qualifying later today?
I hope so. I mean, I still expect them to be really quick over one lap, but I hope we can limit the damage a bit with, of course, the 5-place grid penalty I have.
Okay, thank you, Max.
Max Verstappen then. Here comes second place man, Oscar Piastri.
Oscar, congratulations. You really did control that race from the start. I know you obviously didn't win the race today, but how did it feel out there?
Yeah, it was a bit tricky, to be honest. Very bumpy, as we know, and yeah, the racing line was incredibly narrow. You missed it by a tyre width, and you're in all sorts of trouble. So, no, great day from the team, and a lot of points. So I think we learned a lot for the race tomorrow as well, and yeah, happy.
We know you were managing your pace to stay in touch with Lando, but it seemed like you had quite a lot of pace within you. So are you optimistic for later today and tomorrow?
Yeah, I think optimistic. I think the pace looked okay, but you know, the Ferrari was very quick at the start and Max was very quick at the end. So yeah, let's see. I think we've got a few things we want to try and improve a bit for qualifying this afternoon for the race tomorrow, but I think we're in decent shape.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Lando, congratulations. You won today's sprint race. Obviously, well executed race by McLaren today.
Yeah, not proud about it, but we worked well as a team together, so I thank Oscar. No, but we've done a great job as a team. Today was the result that we wanted. Oscar deserved it, but yeah, we're doing what we have to do. So I thank him and the team, and we had great pace. So I'm looking forward to qualifying and the race tomorrow.
I know you guys managed that race, as I'm sure you had discussions before the race about how exactly you were going to plan it, but out there you did say at one point you were going to overtake. So did you feel you had the pace in you to overtake Oscar out there purely on pace?
It's tough. It's just it was kind of like yo-yoing a little bit. Like I'll catch up and then I'll drop back and catch up. It's just the dirty air here costs you a lot of lap time. So I felt a bit quicker, but I couldn't pass at the time. But I felt good. I think we were clearly quicker than the guys behind. It's just difficult in a sprint race like this to know how much to manage and push and that kind of thing. But we executed it well.
Okay, thank you very much, Lando.
Cheers.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well, Lando Norris then, the winner of the Sao Paulo sprint, closes the gap to Max Verstappen in the Drivers' Championship, now down to 45 points. Norris winning ahead of Piastri, playing the team game there. Piastri letting his teammate through. Verstappen, though, looking mighty in third. Charles Leclerc, Carlos Sainz, the two Ferraris round out the top five. Russell sixth ahead of Gasly, good result for the Alpine, and Sergio Perez squeezing the final point in eighth. Lawson just missing out in ninth, with Alex Albon rounding out the top 10. Hamilton clawed his way back to where he started this race in 11th ahead of Colapinto. Ocon 13th, Behrman 14th, Tsunoda, Bottas, Zhou, Alonso and Stroll. The 19 finishes with Nico Hülkenberg having to pull up in his Haas with problems with his car during that race, caused the virtual safety car in that, not finishing this one. Well, Johnny, it's all smiles from the McLaren teammates as they pose for their picture with Emerson Fittipaldi, but is this a bit of a concern, though, still going forward into a Grand Prix when it comes to those strategic decisions that have to be made on the pit wall? It still seems like they're not committing to them soon enough.
I thought it was a bit clumsy from McLaren. The end result is good for them, obviously 1-2. Okay, with a perfectly optimised race, they maybe could have kept Leclerc ahead of Verstappen, but that's not easy to do, and actually Leclerc dropped 4 seconds away from Verstappen, who was just quicker than the Ferrari today. they're still 1-2, and they still had Norris at the head. And whilst Verstappen was attacking for the entirety of the sprint, 24 laps, they've got to go defending now, because he has been called to the stewards for that VSC infringement. And normally when you see these sort of things, there is an obvious case that Red Bull and Verstappen will have to answer, and I am pretty sure it'll be how close he got as the VSC ended. Max will argue that he didn't gain anything, he hit the brakes and lost himself that time. But is it a technicality where actually he was too quick at a certain point, and that's why he's going up to the stewards? We'll have to see what unfolds in the next hour.
We shall indeed. Well, while a bit of calmness and quietness settles over the Interlagos circuit, we're still with you for a few more minutes yet, just to break down what happened in that. We surprised a bit by how quickly Charles Leclerc ended up dropping away from Verstappen, because I was thinking the Ferraris might well carve through today and mount a threat for the win.
Well, yeah, it was a real lack of pace from them. Leclerc did spend a lot of the first half stuck in behind Norris, and when you do that, you do start hurting your tyres, and that's clearly what happened to Leclerc, who dropped away and actually only beat Sainz by 1.5 seconds in the end. And Sainz just wasn't quick ever in that sprint. All of this is great news for Verstappen. It's obviously decent news in a way for McLaren, who haven't been able to beat Ferrari in the last two races. They now have a great chance to win the Grand Prix tomorrow. But if Verstappen can start behind the Ferraris and still beat them, I think he'll take that result again in the Grand Prix on a weekend where McLaren have the pace. Verstappen has a 5-place grid penalty. He's got a new engine in the back now, and if he can still get back ahead of those Ferraris this weekend, that's a good result for him.
It's another tantalising prospect, isn't it, to go into a weekend in this Formula One season that just seems to be throwing up more and more drama for us.
Look, we've not even spoken about the weather, which is potential for rain even in qualifying later, but more likely in the Grand Prix, which will throw a whole new dimension at this Brazilian Grand Prix tomorrow. It is tantalising. I think Verstappen will be happy to limit the loss to 2 points as well today, so long as he can argue his case with the stewards later. 47 points into the weekend, it's now 45. If he ends at 35 points with 3 races to go on what is on paper a really strong race for McLaren and a guaranteed penalty for Verstappen, I think, Andrew, he's going to be happy. Do you agree?
I do agree, yes. And I think, we were critical of McLaren's strategy during that race. I think if we were to ask them, they would probably say, and I will ask them when we're finished, I think they would probably say, look, we can only look after our own race. We were concerned about our drivers maximising what we felt was our potential. They would say that trying to manage the Verstappen-Leclerc battle as well was too much. I still think, though, that they missed an opportunity. Norris even referenced it himself in his interview there about tyres when you're behind in the dirty air. Give the leader, the guy who's in the championship fight, give him the clean air and do it as soon as possible, then work it out from there. And they did not do that, and I think that was a missed opportunity, which they could, as we discussed in the commentary, could still potentially have tried to manipulate Leclerc and Verstappen behind them.
Even without that, they risked Norris's race more than they had to there. Lando had to absorb a fair amount of pressure in the first half. His tyres might have fallen away like Leclerc's did. In the end, it was okay, but also there was a safety car at the end. Hulkenberg's car was stricken for quite a long time whilst Piastri still led. The VSC ended with about 60 seconds left to run in the race. They could have ended up with a serious egg on their face had they not gotten away with it on those crucial safety car moments just before the safety car and the safety car ending. So it's happy days, it's all smiles at McLaren. Piastri won't mind, he doesn't sound like he's minded giving up the sprint win. It's not like giving up a Grand Prix win. It's 1 point for him, and it's happy days, but it still felt clumsy.
I think what's interesting now is McLaren looked so strong in qualifying, and you got the impression from their interviews there that they felt they could have gone a lot faster than they did. They were managing the tyres. It's always a difficult one in the sprint. It's the first race distance that they do in the weekend, unlike when you go into a Grand Prix, for example, when you've had free practice 2 and long run corner and everything to analyse. They don't get that on a sprint weekend, so they're always a little bit cautious about pace. They now know what they can and can't do with those medium tyres, which are going to likely be the start tyres tyres in the sprint. I expect McLaren to qualify first and second again. The question then is, who's next? Does Verstappen manage to qualify ahead of the Ferraris and therefore only drop down to 8th? Or can Leclerc and Sainz beat him and therefore he drops down to 10th? From 10th, even Verstappen, as we saw today, the DRS is not that effective. He may struggle to get back through the field particularly quickly.
I don't think that'll make a big difference to Verstappen. Whether he's got a Lawson and an Albon just ahead of him or not, I think he'll smoke them both on the first lap and be sitting behind a Russell Hamilton straight away, regardless.
Lawson certainly will just let him straight past, won't he, in his team, in the sister team, but yeah, we'll see.
Another good drive by Lawson, by the way. Finished in 9th, battle with Perez, and just missed out on a point.
He did indeed. That went to Perez. Let's just briefly touch on the Mercedes as well. Russell in 6th, Hamilton, bit of a sprint to forget really for him. We know they've been struggling, particularly through the mid-corners so far this weekend as well. Not happy in either car, but for Hamilton at a track he absolutely loves, it's not the best start to his Saturday.
Well, no, it's been a tough weekend for Lewis so far. Not in the top 10, and George Russell actually falling miles away as well. 24-lap race, and he ended up 12 seconds off the front runners, even with everything, including a VSC and a position swap. So all of that is good news for Verstappen. It's Mercedes not looking like they can defend from Max tomorrow, and they should start ahead of him still because of his 5-place grid penalty.
I'll tell you what is also hotting up: the battle for 8th place in the Constructors. Just 1 point now between Williams and Alpine, but that is worth a lot of money. And actually, I'll tell you what, Gasly's been having a good run of things recently, again finishing this race 7th ahead of Perez. Good result for him.
And they get prize money for this, and you get a little bit of saving face, don't you, if you're Alpine, not finishing 9th out of 10 in the Constructors, 9 of which have scored points. It's going to keep us on the edge of our seats for the rest of the season, Harry.
Oh, that's just the battle for 8th. What about 6th as well? 10 points between Haas and RB. A lot to look out for. But, well, that just starts proceedings, really, for Saturday. The penultimate sprint done and dusted. Lando Norris taking the win and crucial points. That gap now comes down to 45 points. Piastri and Verstappen rounding out the podium. Do join us later on for qualifying. We're on online only, BBC Sport website and app, and on your smart speaker of choice. 5 to 6 ahead of the session starting at 6 o'clock. This has been an ING production for BBC Radio 5 Live, and well, it was an Englishman on top of proceedings here in Brazil with the win. But will England get victory at Twickenham? Let's head to Chris Jones at the Allianz Stadium.
That is the million-dollar question. Huge thanks to our top team in Brazil, Jolien and Harry and everyone, and all the best coverage of the Brazilian Grand Prix across BBC Sounds, 5 Live, Sports Extra, the Checkered Flag podcast. We've got you covered every step of the way over the next 24 hours or so. But here at Allianz Stadium in Twickenham, we are what...